Sometimes I wonder, really recently, if we're living in 1984, or some weird combination between that and Farenheit 451. I don't know. It's one of those weird things in life, because we're definitely on the cusp of something very similar to 1984. With all these terms hearing nowadays, misinformation, disinformation, it's all the same. And it's the fact that we're allowing our government to dictate what we decide is knowledge or truth. And given the level of corruption that seems to exist in all levels, even down to school boards, to HOAs, it's all just this wild version of bureaucracy and power. And the fact that we give people such decision-making powers over our own lives for why, I don't know, laziness maybe, but I don't know. It just seems like every day we get closer and closer to what George Orwell warned us about. And 1984 and Animal Farm especially, like, they were warnings, not guidelines. And it just seems that, like, even after unplugging from social media, my only exposure to news and stuff would be YouTube, and I don't even click. I just see the headlines, and it's enough to see. And it's all fabricated. It's all a construct to steer us into, some form of direction to consume or to obey. And it's something to be worrisome about. Wouldn't say fearful, because the world and the universe and God seem to work things out quite well, but there's definitely that spiritual war happening, and it's so obvious. And it's people watching the news and the media, and it's not fact, it's not reality, it's not, it's like a video I said earlier about, opinions are constructs that we have of each other and other people, and it's not the real version of the person you have the opinion on. And it's no different than the media and the government trying to form a construct or an idea in your head of what reality is. And I always think of the intro to Third Eye by Tool on one of their live albums. It was a Timothy Leary quote about forming in our minds their version of reality, and it's chaos versus order, and it's their way of quieting the scared inside, the fear of the chaos, and trying to institute order. And I know that order is not the natural way. There's a natural order to things, like the number 13, but it's not human order. We're very chaotic beings in a very chaotic universe, very random place, and it just seems that we're really struggling to instill this order to the point where we're, demonizing and controlling other people to such tyrannical levels. It's saddening. Like, one is that we allow it to happen, and two is that it is happening. And a lot of people just seem to be sheep, NPCs, just floating through, oblivious to the invisible prison being built around them via technology and convenience and consumerism. And it's just little bits by bits. So law here, regulation there, and next thing you know, we're in a different world, in a prison. But I think this prison's been built for some time. We've been born into it. It's been around for a few generations, and it seems that we seem to live comfortably within it. We're dependent on these systems of healthcare, of governance, church, education, work, but if you just ask yourself, Why do you have to pay to exist? Why? Why is there a system in place for monetary gains and this system of economics? Like, we should just be able to live and exist. And I guess you could argue that, we exist for free, just be homeless and out of the system, but there's nothing that's free in this world. It's a give and take. Whatever you take, you should give back. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is take, especially from the government, the bureaucratic systems, and it's such an inhuman system that it just grows, and government's a pure example of that, and it takes away from the simplicity of life and gives it an inhumane number and an inhumane system to just grow itself. And I think that's almost the true evil of this world. It has nothing to do with AI or humans. It's this bureaucratic system, this managerial system we've instilled that just seems to justify people's existence to be a part of this gear cog in the system. So, it's not a well-oiled machine, I can tell you that much. And now with the birth of AI and its growingness, it's become real efficient to watch us, to follow us, and really, I can only imagine what the governments would have done with this 100 years ago, let alone now. How the ability to, know how many data points there are about you just from Google alone is alarming. But we're letting bad people run amok, and I think in general we're just having humans run amok. We're messy creatures, and we try to act orderly and clean, but we're chaotic, even at our core. And this idea, similar to Farenheit 451, where we just pacify ourselves for people's feelings and live in this sped up consumeristic world where we just consume, and tie in some 1984 level of truth and rewriting of history, and war equals peace, freedom equals slavery, ignorance equals strength. It just Orwell would be spinning in his grave, and it's not even about left or right or liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. It's all the two wings of the same bird. And I think at some point we're going to have to figure out a different bird. I got to do some digging on the symbolism behind the eagle. It's prevalent in most of modern history, and a lot of flags and a lot of governments. And I know there's a power structure behind that and symbolism. I just don't know. So I'm going to have to do some research. But, I just hope that one of these days a lot more of us are going to come to see the truth and maybe understand that we could just do this ourselves. We don't need to have a system in place to protect us or to save us or to guide us. We just need to put faith in ourselves and faith in God, and not faith in man, because obviously he's not doing a great job. But and with all the world's changing, and I think Trump's a pretty good example of Animal Farm in particular. We see a savior and a revolutionary, and to cast out one tyrant just to become another. And I fear that that will be the cycle we'll be stuck in, is that we search for that savior, and it's just going to be another tyrant in a different form, in a different name, spouting different truths, or different false truths. So, I don't know. See what happens in the coming days, weeks, months, But I know for sure that unplugging from the system as much as you can. I know in my case, being off of social media and just not paying attention to the outside world has been exponentially better and exponentially happier and calmer and more peaceful in my life. So I highly recommend, cast out all the distractions, meditate, do some breath work, catch that moment in nature, and see where the rabbit hole goes.